When a plumber is called, the cost of the service call is $25 for them to show up at your house, plus an additional $35 per hour. So what we need to do for this is first we're going to write an equation. Now we can write it in terms of x and y, or we can also write it in terms of cost and hours, because as I read through this, I can see that the cost and hours are going to be used, and so I think it's a little bit easier to write it that way. So first thing I want you to do is try to write this into an equation. And so I'll give you just a minute to do that. So the cost of the service call is $25 for them to show up at your house, plus an additional $35 per hour. So try to use your keywords and write this into an equation. Okay, so let's check what equation you got. So first we have the cost of the service call. So for the cost of the service call, I'm just going to use C for cost. Is, well, we know is means equals $25 for them to show up at your house. Plus, there's a great keyword. It tells you exactly what to do. We're just going to add on an additional $35 per hour. Well, if we're thinking $35 per hour, what is that going to be? Is that multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting? One way you can think about it is, what if you had them at your house for 10 hours? How would you figure out that cost? Well, we'd have to add 35 for each of those 10 hours. So really, we're multiplying. We're saying 35 times however many hours we need them. And so it'll be times 35h. So let's figure out what x, or basically another way of thinking this is just what our input is going to be. So we can see what determines the final output is going to be the hours. However many hours they spend, that will define our final output. So that tells us our output is just the cost. What is our total cost? And again, that's our output. So let's say that they came for 3 hours. The plumbers came for 3 hours. Could we figure out that cost? I want you to take a second and try to figure out what would that cost be. Okay, so what we can do, we know 3 hours, we can just put that in for h. So we're just going to say, okay, our cost is 25 plus 3 times however many hours, which in this case it's 3. Oh, oops. Don't forget the 35. So we now have 25 plus, so 35 times 3, we get 105. So we'll get 130 total. So if we have the plumbers come, that tells us our total cost will be $130.